It usually begins without warning. You are walking through a store, answering an email, washing a cup, or trying to fall asleep. Somewhere in the background, a song appears. Maybe you heard it earlier that day. Maybe you have not listened to it in years. Maybe it is only one small part of the chorus, just a few seconds long. At first, it feels harmless. Then it repeats. The same line, the same melody, the same little fragment keeps circling through your mind, as if someone has pressed play inside your head and then hidden the stop button. Most people know this experience. We often call it an earworm. Scientists usually call it involuntary musical imagery, or INMI. Music that comes to mind without us deliberately trying to remember it. And what makes it strange is not simply that we remember music. Remembering music is normal. A song can remind us of a place, a person, a summer, a car ride, or a period of our lives we had almost forgotten. The strange part is that the music can start repeating on its own. You are not choosing it. You are not singing it out loud. There may be no music playing in the room at all, but somewhere inside your mind, the song is still there, clear enough to hear and persistent enough to become annoying. For some people, it is only mildly distracting. For others, it can become almost impossible to ignore. It can interrupt concentration, appear during quiet moments, or return at night when the world finally becomes still. But earworms are not a rare malfunction of the brain. They are extremely common. In a 2012 study of more than 12,000 Finnish internet users, researcher Lassi Liikkanen found that 89.2% of participants reported experiencing involuntary musical imagery at least once a week. So this is not something that happens only to a few unusually musical people. It is part of ordinary mental life for a very large number of us. That makes the question more interesting. If earworms are so common, why do they happen at all? Why does the brain replay music when we are not asking it to? Why do some songs become mentally sticky while others disappear almost instantly? Why does a melody sometimes return when we are bored, tired, stressed, or doing something automatic? And why does trying not to think about a song sometimes make it louder? To understand that, we have to look at music not only as entertainment, but as a kind of mental technology. Music is pattern. It is rhythm, repetition, expectation, surprise, emotion, and memory, all moving together. A song does not simply enter the ear. It gives the brain something to predict, something to complete, and something to return to. That is why a short melody can behave almost like a loop. The brain hears part of it, recognizes the pattern, and fills in what comes next. If the pattern is strong enough, simple enough, and emotionally familiar enough, the mind may continue the song even after the sound has stopped. In other words, an earworm may feel like a song attacking your attention, but it may actually be your brain doing what it is built to do, finding patterns, completing unfinished loops, and replaying memories that still have a little emotional energy left inside them. So before we ask how to stop a song from getting stuck in your head, we need to ask a simpler question. What exactly is an earworm? An earworm is not simply a song you remember. That is an important difference. You can remember a song on purpose. You can think of a melody, sing a chorus, or recall the sound of an old track because someone mentioned it. That kind of memory is voluntary. You are choosing to bring the music back. An earworm is different. It appears without being invited. The technical name often used by researchers is involuntary musical imagery. In simpler terms, it means that a piece of music comes into your mind on its own and then continues to repeat without a clear decision from you. It may be a full chorus, but often it is much shorter than that. Many earworms are only a small fragment of a song, a hook, a phrase, a rhythm, a few notes that seem to have found the most repeatable corner of your brain. This is part of what makes them so strange. The brain does not usually replay the entire song from beginning to end. It often chooses the most memorable part, the section designed to catch attention, and then loops it again and again. This is usually the chorus, the title phrase, or a melodic pattern that feels unfinished unless it continues. In everyday language, we say the song is stuck, but from the brain's point of view, something more interesting may be happening. The mind is not just storing music like a file on a computer. It is rebuilding it. Every time you imagine a melody, your brain is recreating the sound internally. It activates memory, hearing, attention, rhythm, and sometimes even the motor systems involved in singing or moving along with music. That is why a song in your head can feel surprisingly real. There is no speaker in the room. There is no sound wave entering your ears. But you can still experience the rhythm, the shape of the melody, and sometimes even the voice of the singer. This is one reason music is so powerful. Unlike many other memories, music carries structure. It has timing. It has repetition. It moves forward. And because it moves forward, the brain can anticipate what should come next. If you hear the opening of a familiar song, your mind may automatically continue it. If you hear one line of a chorus, your brain may complete the next line before you even notice. And if the song stops at the wrong moment, the mind may keep it going. In this sense, an earworm is partly a memory and partly a prediction. The brain remembers what it has heard, but it also predicts what should follow. When that prediction is strong enough, it can keep running in the background, almost like a mental simulation. This may explain why earworms often feel like loops. They are not random pieces of sound. They are small musical patterns that the brain knows how to restart. The ending leads back to the beginning. The rhythm invites another repetition. The melody creates a small tension and then resolves it, only to begin again. A good pop hook is built for this. It is short enough to remember, clear enough to repeat, and satisfying enough to return to. That does not mean songwriters are trying to annoy you. But popular music often uses patterns that are easy for the brain to learn quickly. And once the brain learns them, it may not always wait for permission to replay them. Earworms are also usually not signs of anything dangerous. For most people, they are normal and harmless. They may be annoying, but they are part of the same mental machinery that allows us to remember voices, recognize patterns, predict rhythms, and feel emotion through sound. In fact, the existence of earworms tells us something important. The brain is not passive when it listens to music. It is active, it follows the beat, it predicts the next note, it connects the sound to memory, it links melody with emotion, and sometimes, after the music has stopped, the brain keeps the pattern alive. So an earworm is not just a song trapped in your head. It is a small loop of memory, prediction, rhythm, and attention. And once we understand that, the next question becomes clearer. Why does the brain replay music at all? The brain does not treat music like ordinary noise. A random sound may disappear almost as soon as it is heard, but music has shape. It has rhythm, order, repetition, and expectation. This makes it unusually easy for the brain to follow. When you listen to a song, your brain is not simply receiving sound. It is organizing it. It notices the beat, follows the melody, or recognizes familiar voices, and begins to predict where the sound is going next. If the song is familiar, the brain can sometimes anticipate the next note before it arrives. This is one reason music can feel so physical. Even when you are sitting still, part of your mind may be following the rhythm. You may tap your fingers without thinking. You may feel the urge to move, nod, walk, dance, or sing along. Music enters through the ear, but it does not stay there. It spreads into systems involved in attention, memory, emotion, prediction, and movement. A melody can become connected to a place, a person, a mood, or even a very specific moment in your life. That is one reason an earworm can return so easily. The brain does not always need the full song. Sometimes it only needs a trigger. A word can bring it back. So can a rhythm, a memory, a mood, or a place where you once heard the same song many times. Suddenly, the music returns, not as a full decision, more like a reflex. Researchers often describe earworms as a form of spontaneous musical memory. They are not usually random. They often appear after recent exposure, after repeated listening, or after a song has become emotionally meaningful. But there is another important piece: prediction. The brain is constantly trying to guess what comes next. This is true for speech, movement, vision, and sound. Music gives the brain a perfect playground for prediction, because songs are built from patterns. When the brain knows a song well, it does not simply wait for the next sound. It prepares for it. It expects the next beat, the next phrase, the next return of the chorus. This is part of what makes familiar music satisfying. The brain makes a prediction, and then the song confirms it. But if that predictive system keeps running after the music stops, the result can feel like a mental loop. The song is no longer outside you. It is being simulated inside you. And because the fragment is short, the brain can repeat it easily. A 5-second hook can restart again and again without much effort. It does not require the full song. It only needs the part that feels complete enough to remember, but unfinished enough to return. That is the strange balance of an earworm. It gives the brain a pattern it already knows, but it does not always give the mind a clean sense of ending. The melody can feel familiar and satisfying while still pulling attention back toward itself. The brain wants to continue it, complete it, or repeat it until the pattern feels settled. But with some songs, the pattern is designed to restart. The end of the hook leads naturally back to the beginning, so the brain follows. This does not mean there is something wrong with you when a song gets stuck. In many ways, it shows that the brain is working exactly as expected. It is doing what it often does with sound, recognizing structure, predicting what comes next, connecting patterns with memory, and keeping important or familiar signals available in the background. Most of the time, that system is useful. It helps us understand speech. It helps us recognize voices. It helps us remember melodies, learn rhythms, and connect sound with emotion. But occasionally, the same system becomes a little too effective. A small musical fragment survives after the song has ended. It keeps enough shape to feel real, enough emotion to feel familiar, and enough repetition to keep returning. This is why some songs are more likely to become earworms than others. They are not just songs we like. They often have specific musical qualities that make them easier for the brain to store, predict, and repeat. So the next question is simple. What kind of song gets stuck in the mind most easily? Not every song becomes an earworm. Some songs disappear almost immediately after we hear them. Others stay with us for hours, days, or sometimes much longer. They return while we are walking, waiting, showering, driving, or trying to focus on something completely unrelated. This raises an interesting question. Are earworms random, or do certain songs have qualities that make them more likely to get stuck? Researchers have tried to answer this by looking at the kinds of songs people report most often. In 2016, music psychologist Kelly Jakubowski and her colleagues analyzed songs named as earworms by around 3,000 survey participants, then compared them with other popular songs that were not reported as often. The results suggested that earworm songs often share a few musical features. They tend to be familiar. They are often relatively fast. They usually have a clear melodic shape that is easy to remember, but they are not always completely ordinary. Many also contain a small twist, an unusual interval, a repeated note pattern, or a melodic movement that makes the song stand out just enough. That combination matters. If a song is too complicated, the brain may not hold on to it easily. If it is too plain, it may not be memorable enough. But if it is simple, familiar, and slightly distinctive, it can become mentally sticky. This is why choruses are so often involved. A chorus is built to return. It usually contains the title or the most memorable phrase. It often repeats the same melodic idea more than once. It gives the listener a clear emotional and musical center. So when a chorus gets stuck, it is not surprising. It is often the most repeated, most polished, and most memorable part of the song. But popularity alone does not explain everything. A song can be famous without becoming an earworm for you. Another song can be barely important in the culture, but impossible to remove from your own mind because it is connected to a personal memory, a certain place, or a particular emotional state. This is where music becomes individual. The same melody that means nothing to one person may unlock an entire period of life for someone else. A song from school, a song from a relationship, a song from a summer job, or even a song from a commercial can return years later with surprising force. The brain does not store music only as sound. It stores music with context. Where you heard it, how often you heard it, who you were with, what you felt at the time, whether the song was annoying, comforting, exciting, or embarrassing. All of that can become attached to the melody. That may be why some of the most persistent earworms are not always our favorite songs. Sometimes the brain replays music we do not even like. A jingle from an advertisement, a children's song, a simple pop chorus, a short melody from a video, a game, or a notification. These sounds can be built from strong repetition and simple patterns, which makes them easy for memory to grab. In other words, a song does not have to be beautiful to get stuck. It only has to be memorable. It needs a shape the brain can learn quickly, a rhythm the mind can follow, and a fragment that can repeat without falling apart. Once those pieces are in place, the song has a chance to survive inside the mind long after the real sound has ended. But music is not only structure. A song becomes even more powerful when repetition meets emotion, and that is where earworms become more than simple loops. A song does not get stuck only because it repeats. Repetition helps, of course. A melody that appears again and again is easier for the brain to learn. A chorus that returns several times gives memory a stronger path to follow. A short hook can become familiar after only a few listens. But repetition alone is not always enough. There are many repeated sounds in daily life that do not become earworms. A ticking clock, a washing machine, traffic outside a window, or the hum of an air conditioner can repeat for hours without turning into a melody in the mind. Music is different because it combines repetition with emotion. A song can carry a feeling very quickly. It can make a moment seem lighter, sadder, stranger, more exciting, or more meaningful. And when emotion enters the memory, the brain tends to pay closer attention. This is why a song from years ago can return with surprising force. You may not remember the exact day, or what you were wearing, or what you had for lunch. But if a certain song was playing during an important period of your life, the melody can hold part of that emotional atmosphere. A few seconds of music can bring back a room, a street, a summer, a person, or even a version of yourself that no longer exists. Researchers have studied this connection between involuntary musical memories and emotion. In a 2018 study, Kelly Jakubowski and her colleagues compared music that came to mind involuntarily with music that people deliberately tried to remember. The study found that involuntary musical memories can be closely tied to emotional and autobiographical experiences. That makes sense in everyday life. The songs that return to us are not always the songs we choose on purpose. Sometimes they are the songs that were simply present when something mattered. A song can become attached to a memory because it was playing during a breakup, a celebration, a long drive, a boring job, or a period of life that repeated the same routine every day. This also explains why earworms can feel personal, even when the song itself is ordinary. A simple pop chorus may not seem meaningful to anyone else, but if your brain has connected it to a feeling, it may return again and again. Not because the song is important in the world, but because it is important in your memory. There is also a strange contradiction here. Earworms can be emotional, but they are not always pleasant. Sometimes the song that gets stuck is annoying. Sometimes it is a jingle, a theme tune, or a track you never wanted to hear again. But even annoyance is a form of attention. If a melody irritates you strongly enough, the brain may treat it as something worth monitoring. Trying to push it away can make the loop even more noticeable. This is similar to what happens with many intrusive thoughts. The more you check whether the song is gone, the more you bring it back into awareness. The mind looks for the melody in order to confirm that it has disappeared, and by looking for it, it plays it again. So an earworm is often held in place by several forces at once. The song is repeated enough to be familiar. It is simple enough to remember. It carries some emotional or personal association, and once it appears, attention keeps returning to it, even when the goal is to make it stop. That is why earworms often show up during quiet or automatic moments. When the mind is busy with a demanding task, there may be less space for a song to take over. But when you are walking, showering, cleaning, driving, waiting, or lying in bed, the brain has room to wander. And in that wandering space, a melody can rise to the surface. It may feel random, but often it is not random at all. It is a small piece of memory returning through rhythm, repetition, and emotion. Earworms often appear at strange times. They do not always arrive when you are carefully listening to music. In fact, they often show up when the mind has just enough space to wander. You might be brushing your teeth, walking to a familiar place, folding laundry, waiting in line, cooking something simple, or lying in bed before sleep. The task is not difficult enough to use all of your attention, but it is not completely empty either. This is the perfect space for the mind to drift. Psychologists often call this mind wandering, the movement of attention away from the immediate outside world and toward inner thoughts, memories, images, plans, and fragments of experience. In a well-known 2010 study, Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert used a phone-based experience sampling method to ask people what they were doing, whether their minds were wandering, and how they felt. They found that people's minds were wandering almost half the time. That does not mean the mind is broken. It means the mind is active even when we are not giving it a clear job. During demanding tasks, attention has less room to drift. If you are solving a difficult problem, crossing a busy street, or having an intense conversation, a song may still appear, but it has more competition. But during automatic routines, the situation changes. The body knows what to do. The hands continue the task. The eyes follow the familiar environment, and the mind becomes free to search through memory, emotion, and unfinished patterns. This is one reason earworms often appear in ordinary moments. The song may have been heard recently, or it may be connected to a memory, but it needs a quiet opening to rise into awareness. A repetitive task can provide that opening. There is also something important about rhythm. Many ordinary actions have a rhythm of their own. Walking has a pace, cleaning has repeated motions. Typing has a small pattern. Even breathing can create a quiet sense of timing in the background. These movements are not music, but they can make the mind more receptive to musical patterns. A song that was already waiting in memory can begin to fit itself around the activity, almost as if the brain is giving the moment a soundtrack. The trigger is not always obvious. Sometimes it is a phrase you hear in passing. Sometimes it is the emotional tone of a place. Sometimes it is a memory that rises quietly because the present moment resembles something from the past. And sometimes the trigger may be so small that you never notice it at all. The song simply appears. Once it appears, attention can keep it alive. This is why earworms can become especially noticeable at night. During the day, the world is full of competing sounds and tasks. At night, there is less noise, less movement, and fewer distractions. A small melody can become much larger simply because there is nothing else covering it. The brain may not be trying to annoy you. It may simply be filling empty space with a familiar pattern. Music is one of the easiest patterns for the mind to replay because it already contains structure. It has timing, emotion, and repetition. It gives the wandering mind something organized to hold on to. So when a song appears while you are doing almost nothing, it may not be random. It may be the result of a mind that has become temporarily free, searching through memory and finding a loop that is easy to replay. The quieter the moment becomes, the louder the loop can feel. And that leads to the question most people care about. Can you actually stop it? Once a song gets stuck in your head, the most natural reaction is to fight it. You try to push it away. You tell yourself to stop thinking about it. You replace it with silence. You focus harder on something else. But often, the song returns. This is partly because trying not to think about something still requires the brain to check whether the thing is there. If you ask yourself, is the song gone now? You have already brought the song back into awareness. So stopping an earworm is not always about force. It may be more about giving the brain another pattern to work with. One of the most interesting studies on this came from psychologist Philip Beeman and his colleagues in 2015. They tested whether chewing gum could reduce unwanted musical thoughts. Across 3 experiments, they found that chewing gum reduced both voluntary musical imagery and unwanted earworms. At first, that sounds almost too simple, but the idea behind it is surprisingly logical. When a song is stuck in your head, you may not only be hearing it internally, part of your mind may also be silently singing along. Even if your mouth is closed, the brain can still simulate the small motor plans involved in speech and singing. Chewing gum appears to interfere with that process. It keeps the mouth and jaw busy and may disrupt the inner rehearsal that helps the song continue. The effect is not magic, and it may not work for everyone, but it suggests that earworms are not purely auditory. They may also involve the body's quiet preparation to sing or repeat sound. Other strategies follow the same principle. You can give the mind a different task, especially one that uses working memory. A puzzle, reading, counting backward, or focusing on a moderately difficult problem can reduce the space available for the song, but the task has to be balanced. If it is too easy, the mind may continue wandering. If it is too difficult, the frustration may make you more aware of the song again. The best distraction is often something absorbing but not stressful. Another method is to listen to the full song. This may sound strange because the song is already the problem, but sometimes an earworm is a fragment that feels unfinished. Hearing the complete track can give the brain a sense of closure, especially if the loop keeps returning to the same unresolved section. For some people, this helps. For others, it makes the song stronger. That is part of what makes earworms interesting. The same solution does not work for every mind because the loop is not only in the song, It is in the relationship between the song, attention, memory, and the person hearing it internally. There are also so-called cure songs, songs people deliberately use to replace the one that is stuck. The idea is not to create silence, but to replace one loop with another that feels easier to release. This can work, but it can also backfire. The cure song can become the next earworm. So perhaps the most useful approach is not to panic when a song appears. An earworm usually fades on its own. It may feel persistent, but for most people it is temporary and harmless. The more calmly you notice it, the less attention you feed it. You can chew gum. You can read. You can do a focused task. You can listen to the whole song. You can replace it with something else. But sometimes the simplest solution is to stop checking whether it has disappeared. Let the mind move on to something new. Because in many cases, the earworm survives not because it is powerful, but because attention keeps returning to it. And when attention finally leaves, the song often fades quietly into the background. But even when it fades, it leaves us with a deeper question. Why can the mind create such vivid music without any sound at all? An earworm can feel like a small annoyance, a few seconds of music repeating in the mind, a chorus that refuses to fade, a melody that returns at the wrong moment, when you want silence, focus, or sleep. But the more closely we look at it, the more interesting it becomes. An earworm is not just a musical glitch, it is a reminder that the brain is active even in silence. When the outside world becomes quiet, the mind does not simply go blank. It can rebuild pieces of experience from memory, the sound of a voice, the feeling of a place, the rhythm of a song that is no longer playing. So when an earworm appears in a quiet room, it is not coming from the air. It is being recreated from inside. This is one of the strange powers of human memory. We do not store the world like a recording device. We reconstruct it. A remembered song is not a file being opened exactly as it was saved. It is a living reconstruction made from memory, attention, expectation, and emotion. That is why a song in the mind can feel both vivid and incomplete. You may recognize the melody immediately, but only in fragments. The chorus may be clear while the verse disappears. The rhythm may feel real, even if you cannot explain why the song arrived at that particular moment. The mind gives you enough of the music to recognize it, but not always enough to finish it. And that may be part of why it loops. The brain returns to the fragment because the fragment still has energy. It is familiar enough to repeat, emotional enough to matter, and unfinished enough to keep pulling attention back. In a small way, earworms show how memory and imagination overlap. The song is remembered, but it is also imagined. It comes from the past, but it happens in the present. It may have started outside the body from a speaker or a voice, but now it exists entirely inside the mind. That makes earworms a useful window into the brain. They reveal how strongly music can connect attention, memory, rhythm, and emotion. A simple melody can attach itself to a moment, survive long after the sound has ended, and return later with a force that feels almost independent of choice. They also remind us that the mind is not always under direct command. We like to imagine that our thoughts are chosen deliberately, one after another. But much of mental life is more automatic than that. Memories appear, images rise, worries repeat, old conversations return, songs begin again. The earworm is one of the gentler examples of this. It is usually harmless, sometimes annoying, sometimes funny, sometimes comforting, but it belongs to the same larger world of spontaneous thought, the mind producing material on its own, often from fragments it has collected over years. This is why the same song can behave differently for different people. For one person, it is just a catchy chorus. For another, it is a memory from childhood. For someone else, it is a reminder of a place, a relationship, a season, or a time they have not thought about in years. The sound may be shared by millions of listeners, but the meaning it carries can be deeply private. And perhaps that is why earworms are so common. Music is one of the brain's favorite ways to organize experience. It gives time a shape, it gives emotion a pattern, it gives memory something to hold on to. A song can make a moment easier to remember because it turns that moment into rhythm. So the next time a melody gets stuck in your head, it may still be annoying. You may still want it to stop. You may still try chewing gum, reading, focusing on another task, or listening to the full song. But it may also be worth noticing what the earworm reveals. Your brain is not silent. Even in quiet rooms, it is full of echoes. Some arrive as words, others as images, worries, memories, or half-finished thoughts. And sometimes one of those echoes takes the form of music. A melody from somewhere in your life can return without warning, not because the song is still playing outside you, but because the mind has kept part of it alive. A short pattern, once heard, once felt, once connected to memory, can continue long after the sound itself is gone. That is why a song can end in the world and continue in the mind. And that is why, long after the music stops, the brain sometimes keeps singing.